Madam President, we're grateful to the Presidency of Guyana for swiftly convening today's meeting of the UN Security Council linked to the acutely dangerous development we've seen in the Middle East, developments which have been further exacerbated by the overnight US strikes on Iranian sites. We'd like to thank the UNSG for his keynote address, as well as to ASG Yencha and DG Grossi for their briefings. Russia condemns in the most decisive terms the irresponsible, dangerous, and provocative actions committed by the USA against the Islamic Republic of Iran, a sovereign member state of the United Nations. As we know, in the early hours on the 22nd of June, the US Air Force, in full cooperation and coordination with the Israeli Air Force, an air force which for over a week, in violation of the basic principles of international law, has been conducting massive strikes on Iranian infrastructure and sites, they together launched an unprovoked missile and bomb attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, sites under IAEA safeguards, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. In so doing, Washington yet again demonstrated its complete contempt for the position of the international community. Washington reasserted that to further the interests of its Israeli ally, it's prepared not only to turn a blind eye to the killings of tens of thousands of Palestinian women, children, and older persons, but also to gamble with the safety and well-being of humanity as a whole. Through their actions, the US has opened a Pandora's box. No one knows what new catastrophes and suffering it will bring. In the last 10 days, we heard 3 briefings from the IAEA DG, Mr. Rafael Grossi. He cautioned that strikes on Iranian nuclear infrastructure could have absolutely unpredictable repercussions, as well as that they pose a major threat to both the nuclear safety and security, not only in Iran, but also in the region and the world. Yet Washington is completely unconcerned. It's unconcerned by either the radiological consequences nor the threat to the lives and health of a huge number of people, civilians including women and children, in the region and beyond. Washington, much like West Jerusalem, sees itself as the highest judge in the land, vested with the right to mete out justice as it sees fit. Thus, the US has confirmed that in order to safeguard their global hegemony, it's prepared to commit any crimes, any violations of international law. Let me remind you that no one gave the US the authority to act in such a way. We insistently offered our US colleagues our mediation services so as to find a peaceful, mutually agreeable solution surrounding the Iranian nuclear program. Yet our US colleagues clearly not interested in diplomacy today. Responsibility for this falls squarely on the shoulders of the US leadership, especially given that it is the US leadership that not only publicly acknowledged its responsibility for these actions, but actually flaunted it, demonstrating wholesale disregard for the norms of international law and the UN Charter, as well as Security Council resolutions, including Resolution 487 and Resolution 2231, as well as the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT. Madam President, just 2 days ago, here in this very chamber, we heard from many delegations, including the closest allies of the US. They called for a de-escalation and for the settlement of differences around the negotiating table. Yet our US colleagues yet again ignored this position, the position of the entire international community, following Israel's lead. Instead of checking Israel, instead of forcing it to halt the spiral of escalation. Today, we once again will be hearing from the US representative. We'll be hearing cynical statements about readiness to return to the negotiations table, as if there were no strikes using heavy payload bombs on Iran. Clearly, this is being done to hypercritically subsequently portray Tehran as the party that spoiled the negotiations process, the party that's supposedly undermining stability in the Middle East. Yet we believe that none of our sensible colleagues in the international community will believe our US colleagues anymore, much like they won't believe their attempts to convince the Security Council that Iran was trying to acquire nuclear weapons. Let me remind you that back in March, high-ranking US intelligence officials said that the US does not have information about Tehran's attempts to develop military nuclear capabilities. I imagine that many are getting a nagging sense of déjà vu today. Let me remind you that back in 2003, in this very chamber, the US Secretary of State POW waved around a test tube, justifying Washington's plans to invade the territory of another sovereign state, only to having waged decades of chaos onto its people to not find any WMDs there. Today's situation is no different in substance to the one we saw in 2003. Again, we're being asked to believe the US's fairy tales to once again inflict suffering on millions of people living in the Middle East. This cements our conviction that history has taught our US colleagues nothing. We regret that today some of you in this room didn't and cannot muster up the courage to call a spade and to condemn Washington's actions. And it's very strange to be participating in this theatre of the absurd, this cynical theatre. We had the representative of the UK calling on Iran to exercise restraint, a country which was subjected to an unprovoked attack, which was bombed. It had its nuclear sites bombed, as if it were Iran, not Israel, and the US that was escalating the situation as much as possible. They're calling on Iran to exercise restraint. This is something other council members are doing. We've seen a lot of hypocrisy in this room, but this takes the biscuit. This is a surprising example of hypocrisy on the part of those who, over the last few days, has been whipping up tensions regarding Resolution 2231, which will soon expire. Madam President, throughout the last week, we witnessed a new, highly dangerous wave of escalation. Last night, the situation became wholly unprecedented in nature. The radiological repercussions of the US attacks remain to be assessed, and we're counting on the IAEA and its Director General to issue a clear-cut, professional and impartial analysis of the situation, including by presenting an objective report at the emergency session of the Board of Governors of the IAEA. Yet it's already clear that strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, including those conducted by one of the NPT's depositories, the US, that these attacks amount to a colossal attack on the global NPT regime, non-proliferation regime. They not only deal a blow to the authority of the IAEA, they also deal a blow to the entire system of inspections and control implemented by the agency. They also destroy the basis of the system of international cooperation, including de facto risking casting us back into the era of nuclear risks. Seemingly, this is what Washington and Western Jerusalem are seeking. The Russian Federation, as a responsible state and a permanent member of the Security Council, cannot abide such a scenario. We cannot support it. Iran, as per the NPT, has the right to develop its civilian nuclear program. Overnight, the US has de facto nullified years of diplomatic efforts aimed at ensuring compliance with this fundamental principle. Agreeing with the legality of US actions is tantamount to throwing out all of the international community's advances on this front. And since we talked about the importance of the NPT and the global non-proliferation regime today, I'd like to remind you that Israel has not yet acceded to the NPT. Thus, there cannot be a comprehensive IAEA inspections program vis-à-vis Israel. As for Iran, in keeping, I'd like to remind you that that Israel has not acceded to the NPT, so no comprehensive IAEA inspections program vis-à-vis Israel is being implemented. As for Iran, Iran was and remains the most monitored IAEA state in the world. And instead of supporting Iran, we're getting bombardments of this country, including its civilians. This is a country, and this is being done by a country which has in principle refused to sign the NPT. This is an outrageous, cynical situation. It's very strange that the IAEA DG did not say a word about this, nor did he call on Israel to join the NPT, not once. Madam President, I think that everyone in this room can see full well that unless we stop the escalation, the Middle East will find itself on the verge of a large-scale conflict with unpredictable consequences for the entire international security system. Plus, the entire world might end up on the verge of a nuclear disaster. We call for an immediate cessation of aggressive actions by Israel and the US, restraint on the part of all parties, and return into the fold of international diplomacy and the negotiations process. Yet, calls on the part of UN Security Council members are not enough. Based on the provisions of the UN Charter and these are the very same provisions that those who are hypercritically staying silent today call for the respect for in other cases. On the basis of these provisions, the Security Council is simply duty-bound to craft a collective decision which would make unacceptable strikes on Iranian nuclear infrastructure, which are under IEA safeguards. To this end, we need, first and foremost, a clear-cut legal and political assessment of what happened. For all those who are not pursuing any hidden agendas nor double standards, this is patently obvious. To this end, the Russian Federation, China and Pakistan have prepared and disseminated this morning a short and balanced UN Security Council draft resolution, including a call for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire and for a search for a diplomatic solution surrounding the Iranian nuclear program. The text reflects the positions of an overwhelming majority of Security Council members expressed at our meetings held on the 13th and 20th of June. We're counting on the support of all Security Council members to ensure that the Council can, as soon as possible, send a signal about the need to immediately end the violence, something that the Secretary General again called for, inter alia. Unless the Security Council takes a clear-cut and principled position, further escalation is inevitable. We call on all Security Council members to adopt a responsible approach and to support the proposed draft. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation, and I give the floor now to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Assistant Secretary General Miroslav Jenca, and Director General Rafael Grossi, for your continued attention on this urgent matter of international peace and security. Madam President, last evening, U.S. military strikes targeted nuclear facilities in Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, with the aim of dismantling Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and stopping the nuclear threat posed by the world's foremost state sponsor of terror. This operation sought to eliminate a long-standing but rapidly escalating source of global insecurity and to aid our ally Israel in our inherent right of collective self-defense, consistent with the UN Charter. For 40 years, the Iranian government has called for death to America and death to Israel, and posed a constant menace to the peace and security of its neighbors, the United States, and the entire world. Iran has attacked Israel with hundreds of ballistic missiles and through terrorist proxies. For decades, Iran has been responsible for misery and countless deaths across the Middle East. Iran's government and its proxies have also killed numerous Americans, including American service members in Iraq and Afghanistan. In recent weeks, Iranian officials have intensified their hostile bluster and rhetoric. Iran has long obfuscated its nuclear weapons program and stonewalled good faith efforts in recent negotiations. Madam President, the time finally came for the United States, in the defense of its ally and in the defense of our own citizens and interest, to act decisively. The Iranian regime cannot have a nuclear weapon. Let us be clear. Iran should not escalate. As President Trump said, any Iranian attack, direct or indirect, against Americans or American bases will be met with devastating retaliation. To fulfill its core mission of maintaining international peace and security, this Council must call upon the Iranian regime to end its 47-year effort to eradicate the State of Israel, to terminate its drive for nuclear weapons, to stop targeting American citizens and interests, and to negotiate peace in good faith for the prosperity and security of the Iranian people and all other states in the region. Madam President, a member state here today cast aspersions about hypocrisy and raised the forthcoming meeting on UN Security Council Resolution 2231. In that regard, I would point out that the recent IAEA report on verification and monitoring of Iran's noncompliance with obligatory nuclear safeguards shows clearly that Iran has been continuing to accelerate its nuclear activities without any credible civilian justification. We look forward to discussing the implications of this report and its broader implications on Tuesday, when the Secretariat briefs on the report on implementation of UNSCR 2231. Thank you, Madam President.
Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.